our Big 12 Mojo Rankings. And so like power rankings, yes and no. Power rankings are taken into account here, but it's also the bigger picture as well. Wins and losses matter. Firings and hirings matter. All of the different intangibles that make a program as good as it can possibly be can have an effect on these rankings. But what does matter most is winning and losing. That's the top thing that matters above all. And right now, it's still a little bit early to kind of have too much separation. I think of like about three categories: a top group, a middle group, and a bottom group. But I think the lines are becoming a little bit clearer. And I think now we're going to be knee-deep in Big 12 ball, so we can see this list shuffle a lot. But, yes, this is my version of power rankings with just a little bit of a twist on it. So the Mojo Rankings playing into, like, the state of a program, how they're feeling, how the vibes are, and how the winning's going.
Can you win a game and drop?
Like if somebody behind you has a really great week,
or a quarterback gets hurt, or whatever,
quarterback gets hurt, you lose a big commit or something, like everything can come into play here, especially when you have very little room for separation. So let's dive on into the bottom four this week. And Oklahoma State, unsurprisingly, stays pat at number 16. I mean, how else could they not? You lose to Tulsa on a Friday night and you fire your longtime most successful head coach in school history just days later. So a pretty obvious choice there at number 16 with Oklahoma State. And I don't know if they get removed from this spot moving forward. I don't see a lot of hope for wins, but I did say in a little write-up I did for the 365 Sports newsletter that Baylor better be careful, because if there was ever going to be a supportive, passionate, excited crowd where anything's better than nothing, it would be this weekend in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Do you guys remember the week that TCU fired Gary Patterson?
Yes.
Yep.
Who they played?
Baylor.
Yep.
And they won.
Yep. You know who was on that staff? Doug Meacham.
Yeah, who's now the
interim coach at Oklahoma State.
At Oklahoma State. Now, TCU is a much better football team.
Yeah, they were. But
yeah, so Oklahoma State, no surprise here. West Virginia, they fall to Kansas 41-10. You get blown out like that and you look as bad as they did, you get dropped a little bit. And West Virginia's been one of those teams that's sort of yo-yo. They get the big win against Pitt that brings them back up and lifts the spirits a little bit of again. But if you're looking at purely the football and starting there and then following that up with some of the results, like a 31-point loss in conference play, granted Kansas is a good team, just the mojo for West Virginia at this current moment, it's not that great, because while there's reasons to be excited about what it could be, right now it's very much not. Nico Marchiol is not a fit in this offense.
No.
Whatsoever. They are not good in a lot of areas, like downright bad, and particularly having some struggles on offense thanks to not only a bad fit, but also a bunch of injuries. And so West Virginia, following the blowout to Kansas, has to be at number 15 this week.
Yeah, I watched I watched that whole game, and knowing what I know about Rich Rod offenses and how he likes, quarterbacks that are like, I'll use the term silky smooth. Like, you watch them run and move. And granted, the perfect one was Pat White, but that's not the only one he's ever had that was like that. All of his quarterbacks that he had over his time as a coach when he was most successful were guys, look, when he was at Arizona, like, he had guys like Khalil Tate, like guys that could run. Like, they were smooth runners. Nico Marchiol, while he may not be like, I don't think he's unathletic, but in this system where you've got to be a guy who can cut on a dime, he's more of a runner that's like, okay, I need 7 yards and there's 8 yards in front of you. He can go get that in a straight line. But this offense is so much about speed and quickness. When Jalen Henderson's in there, it looks more like it should, except I think he's limited when it comes to running the whole offense as well. So once Rich Rod gets his quarterback, I think they'll be fine. It's just, I watched that game, and poor Nico is just not a fit in the new system at all.
No, and they might have one of the biggest dichotomies between offense and defense. Like, actually have a pretty good defense, but their offense is really, really bad right now, and that was just a bad loss. And because of that, they dropped down to the number 15 spot. K-State jumps up just a spot above West Virginia. because part of it comes down to if they were playing today, who would I take? And I think I'd take Kansas State. And they're coming off of a bye, so they didn't prove a whole lot other than what we've already seen about them. They're obviously in a bit of a pickle as well. But in terms of mojo, theirs didn't really change, whereas I felt like the kind of mood in West Virginia dropped a little bit of like, oh, all right, yeah, this is a tough loss to take. And then at number 13, got the Colorado Buffaloes, who had a nice win this past weekend over Wyoming. Caden Salter looks like he is going to be able to do what Dion asked of him. Had a nice performance in that win over the Cowboys. So I've got Colorado at number 13. And just because you drop it doesn't mean it's about you necessarily. As you asked me earlier, it could also be about what others have done or what they are doing as well. So Colorado there drops the spot, but I actually am more optimistic about them moving forward because of the way Caden Salter and the whole thing just sort of operated last weekend.
It was nice to see them perform well. I love what Salter did. It's good for him, and they just needed a feel-good moment.
So on to the next batch of teams here as we get to 12 through 9. Baylor dropping huge in my rankings. And for some, that might be like, whoa, like they've lost to quality teams. They've lost to Arizona State and Auburn, and I totally understand that. This is not a pure power ranking, though. If this is a pure power ranking, then they would be right there somewhere inside probably the top 8 or 9, because I still feel like they're a very good team. But taking all things into account, you are still 2-2. You lost another big game at home. And so that has to factor in. If this is not a pound-for-pound ranking, so I've got Baylor dropping just in terms of kind of the mood around the program right now. You got the Dave Aranda conversation sprouting back up. I do feel like they are a team that could very easily jump up 5 spots in a couple weeks. I think that they are good, but they've got to prove it, and I think they have proven it even in their losses. Like, again, you lost a walk-off field goal to Arizona State type of outcome. And no, Josh Cameron's not going to fumble twice every game, and Sawyer Robertson's not going to throw a pick, and you're not just going to hand Arizona State points like you did, but you did. And so coming off of another tough home loss, I've got Baylor dropping to number 12.
They lost their 2 home. They've lost. Samford doesn't count. They've lost games at home. Auburn was fun to watch, but they weren't with any. They didn't belong in that. Well, they belong in the same field, but they weren't better. And then also it's just the chirping, the disinterest. Is this a fall down, or you're gonna? I don't know. And there is a lot of chatter right now. But where is this program going again? It seems like we've done that about every other year. I say, who cover the Baylor football team.
I watching the game the other day, you see these good things, but I watched the game and I thought both Baylor and Arizona State just not as good as I thought they were going to be, but still good teams. They still have those things. Baylor's defense played better than it has at times so far this year, but they still didn't make big plays when they needed to make stops, and that's where teams that are going to win the conference come in. Is where Arizona State kind of made those plays in this game, and that was the difference. Again, really, close game and a good game, and that's how games of the Big 12 work. You got to win the close ones. They didn't, and they've played. Of the 4 games they played, Auburn, SMU, and Arizona State really good. This is the best first 4 games, 3 out of 4, that they've ever played as far as opponents in my time here.
Well, since Grant Taff.
Yeah. There's some other teams that have played some good teams. I think they have the most impressive schedule of any team in the Big 12 right now as far as the quality of opponents that they played. Arizona State, SMU, and Auburn, who all have at one time or another been ranked in the top 25 this year. So the only part about that is you're 1-2 against them, and the 2 losses are at home. So like I said, I think they could jump back up very, very quickly. I think they are a good football team, but you've got to go and you've got to prove it as well. So I think they'll go and do that against Oklahoma State. But for right now, they fall quite a bit to number 11. And part of the reason for falling is because there's a bunch of teams that didn't play. So how could their mojo dip if they weren't playing games this past weekend? So Cincinnati, Arizona, Houston, they were all off this past weekend, but I think they all feel great about where they are currently. I kind of tried to get into the weeds a little bit on what sort of separates these teams ultimately, and I went by, record. I mean, Houston's got a Big 12 conference win. They've beaten Colorado, whereas Arizona and Cincinnati have not yet played a conference game. Arizona's 3-0, Cincinnati's 2-1, so ultimately that's where I fell because I don't feel like there's a ton separating the attitudes about those programs right now. I think they all feel like they're off to a good start. They also know there's a really long way to go, but they all have reasons to be optimistic about why they could end up more towards the top, whether it's Wegman and that defense in Houston, whether it's Sorsby when he's on his A game in Cincinnati, or it's Fafita and Arizona just looking like a much better, more well-rounded team than last year. So, again, not much evidence to go off of this past weekend. But since they couldn't really have a bad week ultimately, that's why they all stay above a team like a Baylor, for example.
They're like on a teeter-totter. They can all move up 2 or 3, or they can all kind of stay and drop. But I like this right here.
Yeah, well, I guess I thought it had it here, but UCF ahead of Baylor on here. Should have mentioned them up 2 spots. The nice win over North Carolina in dominant fashion. So that's why I had UCF ahead of them. I got a little ahead of myself there. So, they jump up a couple spots. They've been kind of hanging towards the back, felt like they were sort of unproven, but you go and you beat an ACC school and you do it by 25 points. I know it's been a rough week for them personally, but it does feel like they've got a little bit of juice to them right now there in Orlando. So on to the next ones. Arizona, as I mentioned, didn't play, so they dropped down a bit. Houston, again, I had to kind of autocorrect from last week a little bit, but I think they feel great about where they are. The defense is playing well. They're 3-0. They've got a win over Colorado. So I think that for right now, they deserve to be right there kind of in the middle ground. Kansas did not have the sharpest game despite what the final score said, but I do like their football team. And I think there's some things they need to clean up and still some question marks, but ultimately they handled their business. And I think that they're a team that's going to be one of those that can create some interesting matchups down the stretch. Utah had to drop them pound for pound. Maybe you would have them still somewhere in the top 5 or even top 4, but dude, you get blown out at home.
24 points, man.
This is Mojo, baby. Yeah. So Mojo-wise, you take a big hit to the Mojo, and so they dropped down to number 6 following that loss to Texas Tech, and then Arizona State, a real quality win on the road, dramatic, emotional fashion to keep you 3-1 overall and 1-0 in Big 12 play. So a big first road win in conference play. I think the Sun Devils are good. I don't know they're quite as good as last year, but they are a team that I think is in more of that top group than in the middle group.
Yeah, and again, it was a nice win on the road, and I kept watching that game like, is somebody going to actually go win this game? Because it's winnable for both, and they did. Levitt runs enough and made some plays with his feet, and, of course, had the huge bomb that set up a score late in the game. Real quick before you get to your top 4, you're not saying if somebody's ranked, for example, below somebody in the Mojo rankings that you wouldn't pick the team who's ranked lower, right?
Yeah, that's power rankings.
As of right now,
yeah.
That's want to make sure that not for you, but for this isn't like a AP poll. This is at the moment where teams are based on what they've done or not done over the weekend.
Yeah, this isn't you like, I mean, for example, we're doing power rankings. I'd have Baylor higher, but they're 2-2. So as far as Mojo rankings go, they're down in the dauber a little bit, so they've got to drop and just happened to be on a week where a lot of teams didn't play, so you slid probably further than you normally would because some of those teams would have taken losses. So, yeah, this is not – I guarantee that Houston would beat Baylor. It's just that Houston's off to a better start than Baylor is, and they are in a better position right now than Baylor is, and I think that's pretty obvious that they are, but you can make the case that Baylor's a better football team, for example, right now. All right, on to the top 4. And there you got TCU. They stay pat. BYU up a couple spots to number 3. I debated on BYU and TCU, but I just think BYU is super efficient right now, and I have some questions about TCU's defense and also their run game with Kavorian Barnes now being hurt as well. I just think when you look at BYU, while they definitely would not take them in a quarterback matchup, just the total package from special teams to defense to just the way that they even had to kind of separate and take a little while last week to get going and had some very fortunate moments, some interceptions with their backs against the goal line, a pick 6. Like, they needed to make some big plays to win that game, but it was at East Carolina. I think they deserve a little bit of credit for going out and winning a game like that when a lot of people were putting them on upset watch, quite frankly, last week. So I was impressed by how they went and handled that. I think TCU is a great football team. I just think total package right now, if you're like, what wows you? Josh Hoover wows you, but what is and Eric McAllister wows you, but there's a lot of other questions I have about TCU beyond those guys. I'm a little bit more sure about the full BYU experience right now.
I'll tell you, I enjoyed watching BYU in East Carolina the other day. East Carolina did the thing that they do when they host these teams, is that they kept them within reach, waiting for them to make that big mistake. BYU is just so well coached that they didn't make the big mistake at the wrong time. Now, look, they had some big mistakes, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that Bear Bachmeier, my God, what an athlete he is. I cannot wait to see him develop, but you are watching a guy a little bit quarterback baby deer learning to stand up for the first time sometimes. And I watched him look at wide open receivers that were like 7 yards away and throw a 99-mile-an-hour fastball when he just needed to put a little touch on it. He is going to be a very special player, I believe, for BYU, and that's going to develop down the line. You can see why they feel comfortable having a true freshman out there because of his superb athleticism. But yeah, that is going to be an up and down for the BYU faithful this year, where they're going to watch a tough defense and tough special teams, and they're going to see Bear Bachmeier make a play where he has like a 30-yard run, and then he's going to throw a pass where you're like, oh, please, Bear.
Yeah,
it's just going to happen.
Like a pitcher who comes up who can throw 100 miles an hour, who then learns how to pitch.
Yeah, and they're eventually going to run into some quarterback matchups where they are not favored, but I think their defense and special teams is very, very good. I feel like with TCU, it's a little bit more Hoover or bust, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more one-dimensional. And so like I said, the full BYU package versus TCU by a slight margin. This will separate that Iowa State at number 2 as they drop a spot. They did not play last week, but resume-wise, there's a lot of people that still just do not want to believe in them whatsoever. And look, they might eat some losses coming up, but I feel like I've been hearing this for like years now, and yet they just keep going and winning games. It's like people still just don't want to give them any credit.
I think it's because for some they're not flashy enough, which is also their damn strength.
Right, yeah. And so they drop a spot, but that's because, the Mojo is in Lubbock, Texas right now. There's no program that feels better, that's winning bigger right now than the big win against Utah, 4-0, 1-0 in conference play as well. So you've got Texas Tech and Iowa State and Arizona State and Kansas and Houston all with wins now in Big 12 play. So that does factor in and could tip the scales from somebody who's 0-1 or 0-0. You get a little bit of credit for having a conference win. But, yeah, Texas Tech, the clear choice at number 1. If we were doing pound-for-pound rankings, power rankings, Texas Tech would be number 1. And there might be some slight deviance or differences, power rankings, like we said earlier. A Baylor's probably higher than a UCF and a Cincinnati and an Arizona, but they're also 2-2 guys, and they're 0-1 in conference. So that has to freaking matter.
Yeah.
And there's also chatter about the future of the program and the head coach again, whereas that's not happening necessarily in Houston right now, where they are unbeaten and have a win in the Big 12. So would I take Baylor over Houston? Yeah, I think that I would. But as far as the feeling of the program right this very moment, I think Houston's in a better place than Baylor is, and hopefully that helps make this make some sense.
It does, and again, the arrow's up, there's arrows down. There's some that are just stuck in the mud. Oklahoma State might be stuck there unless they just all rally together with the game at home at Stillwater against a 20-point favorite in Baylor, who, we'll see what happens. But I like it. There's, the first year I thought first week Colorado was a little bit too high. Mike Golick Jr., by the way, coming up around the corner. And then a story with Tom Celo from Lycoming College, 58-year-old trying to play college football. We'll have that in the next hour. I don't see anyone here that.
What's the big complaint this week?
I don't think there has been one. I get in the chat room, and of course, one of them was, okay, we have the Mojo. We need the Mofo rankings here. Pretty good.
Well, the bad Mofo rankings, Texas Tech would still be number 1. And then after that, it could get a little different. But
I don't see too many. You
can't put BYU in there because they don't say that word.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true. I don't see it. Utah deserved the drop.
Yes.
They got thumped at home the way they normally thump at home, and they got thumped. They deserved the drop. We'll see about some of these teams that moved up, but I think UCF is good to see them have a bump. It's going to be a tough week, but also the 3-0, no matter what.
And there's very little. Houston, Arizona, the difference there is Houston's beat Colorado. Arizona, they beat K-State. That did not count as a conference win. So those are the kind of things I boil it down to. Like I said, winning trumps all, but it's also just kind of the overall aura around your program and in those those football offices and whatnot. So that's where I am with this list this week.
Red wine, there's a lot of great 65. There's a lot of green arrows in Houston and Cincinnati's futures. And, of course, Cincinnati stays at 10. Houston moves up from 11 to number 8. Every Wednesday, usually it will be around 4:30, but every Wednesday, Craig Smoak's Big 12 Mojo Rankings.